What's up, everybody? My name's Chance. Today we're hopping into the first ever F&M podcast, or Friday Night Magic podcast, and this week's topic is going to be the core set 2021 spoilers that's been released so far. We're going to be diving into the ones we think are a little bit more highlightable, if that's a word. With me we have MTG Jeff and Hello Good Game.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? MTG Jeff, and love playing Magic. It's a great honor to be able to play with a bunch of really cool friends as well here, and to be able to just kind of shoot the breeze and discuss all the really cool cards that are coming out with the new set. And there's some doozies with this one, so it's exciting to be jumping into it.
I'm Hello Good Game. You can call me Greg if you like. I've been playing Magic for a while. Unfortunately, my local game store is quite a ways away, like 2 hours. So thankfully, Magic Arena has gifted me the ability to play a game that I've always loved and wanted to play competitively. So I'm really looking forward to collaborating with these two here.
Alrighty. Well, without further ado, we are going to go ahead and dive right into these cards. Jeff, do you want to take it off the top, or?
Absolutely. Yeah, so the first card here, Pack Leader, 2 chromatic cost, 1 and 1 white, a 2/2 dog, which I'm so glad that they changed all dogs, all hounds to dogs, and dog is now an actually printed creature type. So that's something, if you have hounds, they also fit into this deck under the dog category. So other dogs you control get +1/+1. Whenever Pack Leader attacks, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn to dogs you control. That is a really awesome 2-mana lord. And what we've seen before, at least, is pretty much any 2-mana lords that we have can see play. There's not a ton of support for the hounds or the dogs right now, but the ability of whenever Pack Leader attacks, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn to dogs you control, that's pretty good. You know, the fact that it prevents damage for itself as well as all the other dogs is pretty busted. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so I really like dogs just being introduced into the set, and we have to remember it's core set, so I think the main idea isn't for dogs to be explosive in this set, like you said, but rather maybe 2-3 sets from now, I feel like they're going to be a true standard deck.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty sad last set when we seen, or maybe even the set before in Theros, when we seen Kronos, the 3/3 hound with Vigilance, Lifelink, and Death Touch, I believe, the Cerberus type hound. And I was just so sad that we didn't get to play him, so I'm really looking forward to bringing dogs into a more competitive archetype, even if it's just in Historic, but it'll be a lot of fun.
Yep, and Mawu, we got a lot of good hounds out there that we'll get some love with this, hopefully.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Spark Hunter Massacre. This is a 3-cost, 3/4 artifact creature. As an additional cost to cast the spell, discard a card. It has protection from planeswalkers, which is pretty cool. And then we can pay 1 to deal 1 damage to target planeswalker, and pay 3 to give it indestructible until the end of turn. So I think that's really powerful. You have to discard, which isn't going to be so bad the first time you play it, but the second time you play it, if it gets bounced, it's really going to suck. It's a great blocker, 3/4, and then you can sink your mana, deal damage to planeswalkers, which is really cool. And it also will survive field wipes, which a lot of planeswalker decks really focus on to control the aggro matchups. I think this is going to be pretty cool. It'll make a nice sideboard card, but I think you could get really punished for relying too heavily on it.
Luckily, it won't get bounced by Teferi. It might get bounced by some other stuff or removed if you don't have the mana to sink into it.
Yes,
but
like a
it's
petty
not going to get hit by Teferi, and that's the one great thing about it. But yeah, I don't know. I think this card is good. I think that the main ability to take away here is the protection from planeswalkers is relevant. The stat line of it being 3/4 is really relevant as well. But I think the best part here, and the reason you're going to be playing it, is for that second, the first activated ability. Pay 1 and deal 1 damage to target planeswalker. There's plenty of times when you're holding up just an extra mana or 2. You know, someone brings out a planeswalker, and in response to their trigger, you can at least ping down the planeswalker and get rid of them. And keeping the 3/4 creature on the battlefield after whatever else happens, and we're probably going to see a lot of Ugin or whatever other planeswalkers are out here this new set, and so I think this is going to be really useful.
Yeah, the only downfall I will say is, like you mentioned, I think it was yesterday, Jeff, it only has 3 power, and right now in Standard there's a lot of 4 health, just empty walls that are played, so that's the only issue I have with it, is it's not quite strong enough to get there.
Good point.
Alright. Next we have Chandra's Incinerator, 6 mana. creature elemental, so works well with the elemental tribals. The spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total amount of non-combat damage dealt to your opponents this turn. Whole lot of words there. We'll get into that in a minute. It has trample, and whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, Chandra's Incinerator deals that much damage to target creature or planeswalker that player controls. So again, a lot with this card. I'm glad I get to introduce it. So diving into the text of it, the spells cost X less to cast, where X is the total amount of non-combat damage dealt to your opponents this turn. Taking away from that, like shock, all the 2 mana abilities, you're only going to be reducing it maybe 2-3 realistically before you're able to play it, which still, get it down to like 4 mana, and 4 mana for a 6/6, or even 3 mana for a 6/6 with trample is just bonkers good in general. And then not to mention the second part of the text where you get to deal non-combat damage to, planeswalkers or creatures, so it also acts as this pseudo removal. Yeah, mono red burn. It's gonna be a thing. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, I think that in standard, we still don't have that many great burn spells necessarily right now, especially from what we've seen in the past. But like you said, just even 2 shocks makes this a 2 mana spell. And all of a sudden, so if you have that turn of 2 shocks into Incinerator on turn 4, that is still a really, really busted play. And then having the ability of it doing more, doing kind of the double damage with this is really, really bonkers. I think that where it's going to see probably more play, though, because I don't think that line is ever going to be crazy consistent. I think it's more that you're going to want to have lots of damage dealers that deal damage without you having to really do anything, the things that tap to deal 1 point of damage, or maybe the planeswalkers that shock in, or like Spawn of Mayhem where it just does 1 damage at the beginning of turn. Those kinds of things will help reduce this cost, where if you're playing this at 3 mana, it's always a good deal to have a 6/6 trampler for 3 mana. I think it's always worth at least be trying that, even though it can die to removal. I think the ability there is really, really powerful. And then if you have any other things that deal non-combat damage, and getting the extra damage out of this is gonna be pretty bunkers. And then a 6/6 trampler on top of it. This is gonna be cool.
Yeah, I think this is going to go great in big red. Like, worst case scenario, it just doesn't get cast, right? And then you do have that card to finish off your opponent with, just to increase the damage that you are doing. But I mean, no haste is a bummer. You can cheat it on the field, which is great. I worry that maybe spells will be countered, and then cost of it will remain high for the majority of the time in some matchups. But in certain matchups, this card is going to ruin the play.
I think it's cool too that you can get multiple of these out on 1 turn, and the ability does stack. And so if anything does do damage, then you might get like 6 points of damage just with a shock, and then have 2 6/6 tramplers. So it'll be bonkers.
My go-to line was Ironcrag Pyromancer, since it deals so much for so little. Just draw 1 card and boom, 3 damage to the face.
Yeah, this is gonna be deadly and historic for sure.
Oh yeah.
All right, next up we have Chandra, Heart of Fire. 5 crew mana cost, 2 red, 5 loyalty, and the +1 ability, 2 +1s on this, which is notable. First one, discard your hand, then exile the top 3 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may play cards exiled this way. This includes the ones that you had exiled in previous turns, I believe. And so that can end up being like a complete new hand out of 2 turns with this. And then the second ability, it deals 2 damage to any target for +1. Again, that being a +1 is actually really, really nice. The loyalty on this is really high and going to be hard to deal with. So you're going to most likely get at least 2 triggers off of this planeswalker. And then the -9, search your graveyard and library for any number of red instant and sorcery cards, exile them, and then shuffle your library. You may cast them this turn at 6 mana. Yeah, that's pretty good. What do you guys think about that?
Just removal for a plus is great. A lot of things only will have 2 health, especially like some of those more annoying things like Priest of the Forgotten Gods, for example.
Oh, yeah.
So just being able to ping that off while plussing your planeswalker is great. The discarding your hand and then exiling 3 that you can play, that's bonkers on an empty hand as well, right? So 2 really nice plus abilities on a planeswalker that already comes in with a fair amount of loyalty, I think is really good.
Yeah, well, and just think too, like if you are playing a deck that's running a lot of burn spells and like Chandra's Incinerator, like we just checked out, and then all of a sudden you do maybe get up to your -9 ability, and you like maybe you fizzled, maybe they gained a lot of life, you couldn't do much, but you cast a lot of instant sorceries. All of a sudden being able to cast, you untap, you -9, you already have probably like 6 to 7 mana if you're actually ultimating this already. You should be able to close out the game with burn spells on that turn. So it is a game-ending -9 as long as you're built even somewhat around this card. And I feel like it's pretty easy to build this way for this card as well, especially with the +1, maybe discarding some other like shocks or whatever into the graveyard. So I think this is going to be a really good card to see play. We'll see though.
Yeah.
Is the -9 better than the 4-cost Chandra's -7? Right, where you draw 7 cards, deal 7 damage or whatever.
Oh, I would say this one's maybe a little bit better overall. The overall Chandra is, but I'm not sure about the actual ultimate. I think the other one where it deals damage equal to its loyalty is the one you're talking about.
Yeah, that's
or equal to the loyalty that it loses or something like that. Yeah, it's a really powerful effect. Just because of the immediate damage, it can't really be countered. It's more of just a static effect almost.
Why not just play both? You got a 4 mana, you got a 5 mana Chandra, you got a 3 mana Chandra.
Yeah, the Chandra Tribal is looking really fun, which a lot of that does rotate out, I believe, but we got 3 months to play it, and that'll be really, really fun.
Next up, we have Grimm Tutor for 3. It's a sorcery. Search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, and then shuffle your library. You lose 3 life. So this doesn't stand out too much just because you do have to do it at sorcery speed, and you'll probably just be looking to go for combo pieces in specific decks with it. However, I wanted to talk about it today just for the fact that we still have Teferi's and his plus ability casting our sorceries at instant speed. This is just an ideal play line for me in the new Esper that's going to be pretty prevalent, I think. Being able to not just draw on your opponent's end step, but draw for a specific card in your deck. I think that's going to be really powerful.
Absolutely. Especially in like the Yorion decks where they're having 80 cards, they lose some of that consistency. I could definitely see them playing 2 copies of this and being able to use it to find the board wipes when they need it, or find maybe combo pieces or the value cards, Elspeth Conquers Death, when they need it.
Yeah, and losing life isn't nearly as prevalent nowadays since we have so much life gain in standard with the omens and all that. I feel like it's much more prevalent than it used to be. Alrighty, moving on, we have Rin and Seri Inseparable. 4 mana in the Naya color set. It's a 4/4, so solid stat lines just coming down. And it reads, whenever you cast a dog spell, create a 1/1 green cat creature token. And whenever you cast a cat spell, create a 1/1 white dog creature token. So dog cat tribal. This is kind of weird because we have like 2 tribals meshing into one here, which is going to be a little fun to work with the numbers whenever you're building out your deck. And then for 3 mana in the Naya colors, again, you can tap this card and it deals damage to any target equal to the number of dogs you control, and then you gain life equal to the number of cats you control. So, it's a fun one.
I'm so hyped for this. I love the cat dog tribal thing. I think it's hilarious and awesome. And I really like that this actually has some pretty great abilities. So just going wide is never a bad plan. If you're playing cats and dogs anyway, first off, for a commander, this is going to be awesome. But I think that even in standard, just the fact that this has so many effects if it ever stays on the battlefield for 1 turn. That's probably going to be the hard part, is you're not sure if you're ever going to get this to stay on the battlefield for 1 turn. But if it does, the ability to cast dogs, go wide, and then also having the ability to kill anything you want to and gain life each turn, like, is actually really, really good. And so I'm excited, especially with like there's a few cards that add a little bit of protection in this new format, that I think it's a little bit more possible to keep this on the battlefield. The hard part is that you want to be playing this on turn 4 and then kind of just hoping that it survives so you can actually get value by turn 5 to actually close out the game. So I don't know, what do you guys think? Is this actually playable in standard, or is this more just a commander card?
I think in standard it might be a little bit harder to get out on turn 4 just because of how stringent the mana cost is. In Commander, with things like Arcane Signet and Command Zone, I think it's going to be a lot friendlier.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just a little too slow in standard. It'll be fun though. Fun jank, fun tribal.
Yeah, I do think that there's a lot of cards that are put into this standard that are pretty much all actually commander cards, like they're printed for commander, which I think is great and it's awesome. But at the same time, like, like this one. This is the next one is Solemn Simulacrum, 4 mana cost, Golem 2/2. This is a staple in Commander. It has been for a long time. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card, put that card into the battlefield tap, then shuffle your library. Whenever it dies, you may draw a card. So this is obviously a lot of value for 4 mana. I mean, 4 mana 2/2 doesn't feel great, but you have something happen immediately. You have something happen when it dies. There's just a lot of value that it produces, and it can go into literally any deck because of the color, generic color. And so I actually think this will see play in Standard, but I don't think that's necessarily the main reason for it. I think the main reason was to have this reprinted for Commander. Like there's a lot of cards that are like, okay, that's great. Because I think Standard has moved so much more towards the digital world, I think they're adding in these additional cards into sets because they know they need to be reprinted, which I'm really hyped for. I think it's really good that Commander is getting a lot more. We are all more Arena players though, and so we're going to try to keep our take a little bit more towards the side of, what is this good on Arena? Is it worth actually picking up? And this is one of the few Commander cards that I feel like you may want to run this as a 2 of, because of the amount of value it has. If you're trying to ramp up, I mean, we've seen Golos do really, really well. This doesn't get to grab any land like Golos does, but it has a similar effect where getting the extra land on turn 4, being able to have a body to block with, and when it dies, you get to draw a card. It's perfect for being able to still be ramping up to your good stuff and maybe be able to have a pretty good blocker against mono red. So I do like it.
I think it's positive value all around. And like you said, it is probably focused towards Commander, which we don't have a lot of, but we do have Brawl, right? So that's growing, and a lot of these cards are really applicable in Brawl as well. So not only does it fit into almost any deck with relative positive value, unless it gets exiled, right? But an artifact deck, or like something, the Ugin or Tezzeret with affinity for artifacts, for example, this is just a powerhouse in one of those decks.
Yeah, y'all covered it.
Next up, we have Teferi, Master of Time, a 4-drop Planeswalker coming in with 3 loyalties. It does have a passive ability. You may activate loyalty abilities of Teferi, Master of Time on any player's turn. Anytime you could cast an instant +1 ability of draw a card, then discard a card. This 3, target creature you don't control phases out, which means you get as add anything attached to it as though it didn't exist until its controller's next turn. So it target it, you can't wipe it. It's great. And then -10, take 2 extra turns after this one, which is insane. What's really nice about this, and we talked about this yesterday, I was unaware of originally, is that you can activate Planeswalker abilities on your turn and your opponent's turn with this. So +1 you'll be able to do on your turn and your opponent's turn, which is incredible. So even though it's only coming in with 3, which is quite light, the fact that it goes straight to 5 is very, very cool, and it really makes getting to that -10 more viable.
Yeah, and this can be done at instant speed. So in response to something targeting it and trying to do like 4 points of damage, it can immediately jump up to 5, whatever. So it's, it's really bonkers. I think it's interesting too that you can do it at instant speed on your turn as well. There's so many lines that you can go with this Teferi, Master of Time. Yeah, so you can, like, if you think about it, like I was thinking that this loyalty was a little bit low and it was going to be so hard to get to the -10 ability, but even if it's trying to phase things out, it's getting +1 up to 4, plus up to 5, or maybe -3 onto your turn, goes back down to 1, plus up, and then on your turn again. Anyway, there's the phase out ability will come a lot more often, I think, than people are ready for, and it's a little bit terrifying, honestly. Every other turn at least, if you can't control this, and with them drawing cards, discarding cards, they're going to be hitting more removal. So this is in some ways a control deck's dream. The biggest issue I see with it though is that it is 4 mana instead of 3 mana, which it's a lot harder to take the turn 4 off with a control deck. Where if they have been able to put out a couple of creatures, this is going to come in, phase out 1 creature, and then the other one's going to come in and kill Teferi, Master Time. And I'm not sure that's the best line for them to be going for. You may see that a lot of decks using the +1 ability a lot more, or maybe even trying to slot in more board wipes into this 4-drop slot rather than something that's kind of like even though it does a lot when it comes into play, it doesn't manage a bigger board, which you typically are seeing on turn 4, especially if you're behind in a control deck.
Yeah, so my homework
even if
Go ahead. My homework for people, I just want to see somebody come up with a way to make the -10 go infinite. All right, that's it. Proliferate. That's all I want to see.
Yeah, it should be after 2 turns.
We see tempo decks here that are like really good, and normally they need to be holding up their mana for a counter. They could play Teferi, save their flyer with Staggering Insight or Curious Obsessions with the -3 on your turn, right? So I think it might not only see control.
Yeah, so unfortunately it's a creature that you don't control phases out.
Oh goodness.
Yeah. So it's only targeted opponents, whatever. But yeah. So the one nice thing though is you can, if someone is, auras have been seen play a little bit with like the Luris deck and everything like that that's going on. If you do phase out a creature, it'll keep everything that's attached to it already, but it will fizzle whatever auras like it is directing it or targeting it. Something like that, and so that will help out a little bit.
One thing that's really nice about it though, and I didn't think about it till just now, is it can any cards that are taken from you with what's Active Treason and the smaller one that's used everywhere now, the 1 mana steal 3 CMC or less.
In the firstborn.
Yeah, you can phase out your own creature so they can't sacrifice it and get rid of it. So
right.
You actually have protection against those Cat Oven decks, at least until they rotate out or whatever.
All right, next up we have Rune Halo, which is 2 white enchantment. This is, again, a staple that's been around for quite a while. And it says, as Rune Halo enters the battlefield, choose a card name. You have protection from the chosen card name. So this has a lot of very cool abilities with this, where like you can just completely be protected from a deck's main win con, which, Zenith Flare is one of the ones that comes to mind. Expansion Explosion with Willish Reclamation. You can just call this on Expansion Explosion, and they cannot deal damage with that card. I mean, each of these decks, and this is why it's important for, if you are a deck building or whatever, that you want to have multiple win cons in your deck, because something can get unmoored, egoed, or whatever. But I think that Rune Halo is a perfect sideboard card right now. And it's honestly thinking a little bit more, I'm more excited about jumping into best of 3 now, because we're getting some really powerful, really solid sideboard cards here with this set that I feel like we've kind of been lacking recently, because there's been so many explosive, so many fun different things you can do that are kind of main deck playable, but you just didn't have very good things to sideboard in to interact with those crazy good things. But now you can throw this down on a Questing Beast. And Questing Beast will protect you from the damage, and then that damage can't go to the Planeswalker. So they'll have to attack the Planeswalker directly itself, which still can happen. It only protects you from the chosen card. Planeswalkers will still be fine, but it does shut down quite a few decks. And so I can definitely see this coming in as a really good sideboard card.
Yeah, you topped it off there.
A great sideboard card. I mean, anything that is an Esper tool, I'm really excited about. Even potentially this goes into our Brawl or Commander decks, right? It's great to just be able to single out his Commander right there, and it's like, well, that doesn't do anything to us now.
That's true.
Alrighty, so up next we have Heroic Intervention. 1 and a green, so very easy to slot into most decks. Instant speed. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Yeah.
This is everything I've been looking for.
So I used to have a red-green Pummeler deck, and this was my favorite card in that deck. This is a card that sees play a lot, but this is something that you don't want to be running a ton of necessarily. It is 2 mana, which is a little bit harder to cast than I think a lot of people give it credit for. But this is a perfect 2 of in any rule, like any creature deck, where you're going to have lots of creatures, have lots of permanents that can get destroyed. And it's really great to be able to just pose control sometimes. It's kind of like we had Veil of Summer, which was kind of that idea for a while, and it got banned because it was so powerful at 1 mana. This is still insanely powerful, especially adding the indestructible line of text here for 2 mana is really, really powerful. And honestly, I think it's what the mid-range level decks absolutely needed right now to make this format work, because I feel like control got so powerful that it could even beat aggro, which is not typically how it's supposed to be. Aggro is so powerful to an extent that they were beating a really, really powerful control, because there was some that were just really powerful, and mid-range just kind of got annihilated. There was no mid-range. The only mid-range that we saw was the Fires of Invention decks, and those were almost more combo-y than they were actual mid-range. And so I'm really excited for this card because I think it will bring back the potential for a good mid-range deck, like Selesnya, Gruul, something like that, to bring in some good monsters decks,
Yeah, see, I like the fact that it can protect your creatures and all that, and the janky side of me is like, oh yeah, this is great. But it also protects, like, oh man, I'm forgetting the name. The 4 mana untap all your lands. The main piece of Expansion Explosion.
Wilderness Reclamation.
Yeah, it just protects that, and Wilderness Wreck loves this. It's instant speed, so they get to untap all their lands. It only costs 2 and protect everything. So, like, yeah, I'm excited for it for jank, but I think what we're going to see is Fog come back to where they're not trying to blow up your side, but they're just going to ignore it until they can find a way to pierce their armor.
I think that Fog has been on the fringe where it's almost wanted to come back. The only issue is that Bone Crusher Giant is still in the format where you can stomp and get rid of it. I actually played up against a few people that have played Fog against me, and it's like it's amazing how often you do have Bone Crusher Giant against those matchups, and it just kind of shuts it down. So that's something to be aware of. Once Bone Crusher Giant rotates out, we're going to probably see Fog come back, which I'm not excited for myself.
Next up, we have Gadrick, the Crown Scourge for 3. It's a 5/4 legendary creature dragon with flying. Gadrick, the Crown Scourge can't attack unless you control 4 or more artifacts. At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each non-token creature that died this turn.
Ooh.
Right, a 5/4 with flying is great. The fact that it can't attack unless you control 4 or more artifacts makes it a very specific card for specific decks, right? Obviously, this isn't going to go into your Gruul deck as a flyer. But an artifact deck or something that maybe has the treasures, like the Jund Sacrifice, for example, this could sneak in and see some play.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that, like you said, Jund Sacrifice, that's probably the biggest thing everyone is most worried about, is seeing a deck like that come out and also have a lot of extra value from the Cat Oven type of cycle. But I think this is honestly good. Again, I'm a mid-range player, so I love seeing any card that will help out that mid-range deck. And I think that a 3 mana 5/4 flyer that, even though it can't attack, it can definitely block, is actually pretty legitimate, a pretty good defense, and it's a good threat to kind of be bringing into play. There's the Shimmer Dragon as well that's out that also gets value for having lots of artifacts and treasures and things like that. So we may even see kind of like an Izzet control archetype that has more of a mid-range fill, kind of like something like that. That's what I'm probably most excited for with this deck, is something that this card is just trying to utilize it as a value piece, and just as a really good blocker, more so than just the Cat Oven deck. So there's more than just that deck that's going to see play with this one, because it's just a really, really powerful, good card.
Yeah, it is artifacts for sure.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's probably going to see most play in the Jund Sacrifice deck, which is already terrifying, and I'm not super excited about that. All right, next up we got Elder Gargaroth, and it's a 5 mana cost, Beast, 6/6, Vigilance, Reach, and Trample. The Reach is actually pretty relevant, as we keep seeing. It's probably the one keyword that I forget the most often. I don't know why, but and then whenever it attacks or blocks, you get to choose one. You get to create a 3/3 green Beast creature token. You can gain 3 life or draw a card. So I do like that this is attacks or blocks. This can, with that much value, being able to draw a card, gain 3 life, you can kind of stall out a mono red deck, even if they have the Embercleave on that turn, because you can end up creating enough value to not have them win on that turn, and you might just get enough value to swing and win in response. But you guys probably know that the downsides of this one. What's the kind of the issues with this one?
Yeah, I mean, same with any.
It needs to be ramped into. I feel like.
Needs to be ramped into, and it's easy removed.
Yeah, I mean, anything that comes down, it doesn't immediately cause any effects, and so it's absolutely it's kind of vulnerable. Where if you're gonna play this, and it's gonna get Elspeth Conqueror's Death, it's gonna get a Heartless Act, it's gonna get Bounce by Teferi, whatever. And that's kind of the sad part about any 5-drop type of thing, is that it almost feels like you have to have immediate value out of this for it to really work. But at the same time, like you were saying, I think if you ramp into this and get it down, turn 3, turn 4. And maybe you have a chance of dodging some of the worst, the Elspeth Conqueror's Death for a turn. I think as long as you get to attack with this one time, block with it one time, it gets quite a bit of value and will set you up for success. But I'm not sure how often that'll actually happen in its current format right now.
In limited, this wins games without a doubt.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
this is busted.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have Joel Rail, the Recluse. How about I go with the word I can say? Legendary creature, human druid, 2 mana. It's a 1/2. Not exciting, just base stat lines, but what is exciting is whenever you draw your second card each turn, which is not hard to do, you create a 2/2 green cat creature token. And remember, this card comes down for only 2 mana, so you draw 1 extra card on your turns, and you're already getting a whole extra creature. For 4 and 2 green, until end of turn, creatures you control have base power and toughness XX, where X is the number of cards in your hand. That's more of a limited thing, I feel like, for drafting. But yeah, I'm super excited about the first part of this clause where you just get to draw and create cats on the back end of it. What do y'all think?
Yeah, this is interesting because we've seen this in the Izzet colors, and this is an ability that got a lot of love. I think it was in Throne of Eldraine.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool to see it come into green, even if there's only this 1 card. Hopefully, we'll see even a little bit more. But I think that having it go into Teamer is really nice because you get the ramp, you get Burrows, you get things like that kind of help you draw cards and get extra value at the same time. So I think this will actually be a kind of busted Teamer deck. And then the 6 mana ability, if you have a bunch of fairy flyers or whatever that are out there, and let's say if you are playing a deck that's drawing lots of cards and everything, you should have like 4 cards in your deck. If you can turn all of 4 fairy flyers into 4/4s for 6 mana, it's actually a pretty legitimate line, and you can do it at instant speed. So if you attack in, they don't think they're blockers, they don't seem to have any kind of defense. All of a sudden, you fire this off, and hope for no responses. But I mean, that's 16 points of damage, and getting 4 fairies is pretty easy in that. At least in the Izzet version of this deck, I think the Teamer version is probably going to be even more powerful, and it's kind of cool to see some more pieces for that, and also a really cool commander that I honestly might play. It looks really fun.
Yeah, the cat commander and dog commander is going to be rampant for a while. It's just certain things in Magic that are more fun than others.
Yeah.
Often than not, they're not really competitive. They're like on the very low side of that, but every now and again you can get it to work. Really excited to try. I think this is great. Maybe in a ramp deck, obviously costing 6, expensive, but if we can get into that and lower the cost and have a big hand, like you said, maybe an expansion explosion, I think that could be really cool.
Absolutely. Next up, we have Soul Seer, 3/4 mana cost, instant. It deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. That permanent loses indestructible until end of turn. We've been needing a way to deal with the gods, and I think this is basically what this does, is that we finally have a way to sideboard in an answer for Heliod, for just all those different creatures. They do have to be creatures, not their enchantment type, for this to really work. But it's really nice that it first off kills creatures, but then it also has the extra line of text that it can also deal with planeswalkers. So I think that it adds an even better, more solidified slot in your sideboard where, okay, I can play this against the planeswalker decks. I can play it against, a bigger creatures deck. Like this actually kills, what's it called? The Love-Struck Beast that can just be really detrimental if people are playing out those big bodies that kind of slow you down. So I think this is a good card. I think that we've seen, it's Lava Coil is for 2 mana, and you can get a lot of value out of the Lava Coil. Going up to 3 mana makes this a little bit harder to play in the main board, but that's why I think it's a really powerful sideboard card, because it's really, really powerful as long as you're up against the right matchup.
Yeah, I think Team
previously all we had was Shadow Spear to take away indestructible from the gods,
right.
And even then you need a creature to convert with it to now attack, or a removal spell, right? So this is nice, just trimming your required card base. So it's going to be a really good sideboard tool because there's lots of viability with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Team Erect just gets to looking better and better. Like the more cards we go through here, I'm like, okay, yeah, and that fits in there, and that one does, and that one.
Team of Reclamation is probably going to be it's the top tier deck right now. I think after the post bannings.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's so many pieces that are coming in with this. I'm interested to see exactly where it goes. with the meta, but Team of Reclamation has been around for pretty much since Wilderness Reclamation has been around.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful deck. So you're right. I think that there's so many pieces that can just add to that with this set.
Which is nice because previously, I mean, they kind of were limited to playing Expansion Explosion, right?
Yeah.
Like that was their only go-to. The rest was just control. So it's nice to give them maybe a little bit more of an offensive ability.
Yeah. Well, they do have Shark Typhoon, which is
I guess,
a little bit terrifying too. But
next up, we have Chromatic Orrery for 7, a legendary artifact. It's a mythic. We spend mana as though it were any mana or mana of any color. We can tap it immediately because it's an artifact to add 5 colorless mana, which then, because of the card's ability, can be any color. Then we can pay 5 to tap it and tap it. A card for each color among permanents you control. So this is neat. This is great for jank, and it might even see its way into like a ramp deck, right?
yeah, so I think the most exciting thing with this one is that Titan's Nest is in standard. Like, so this is obviously an amazing card for Commander, and that's kind of what we said. We're like, there's a lot of these cards that are, I feel like, specifically printed for Commander. We've seen a lot of cards like this that do similar effects in Commander, where you're only really spending 2 mana for this. As long as you've gotten to the 7 mana, you immediately get to tap it again for 5, and so the values are there. The crazy thing is with Titan's Nest, being able to dredge, or exile cards from the graveyard to add 1 colorless mana, it can only be spent on colored cards. That was the issue before, but all of a sudden you can use that colorless mana on anything. We have a basically infinite ramp deck here available to us, and so this is going to be a big combo piece. Basically, the goal will be to ramp up the 7 mana, have a Titan's Nest and Chromatic Orrery on the battlefield, and then as long as you have ways to fill the graveyard and still cast a lot of good cards, you should be able to combo off and win a game on the turn you play this. And I would be okay with that if I felt like 7 mana was harder to reach, but right now in the format, it's really, really easy to get the 7 mana, so I'm kind of terrified of this deck, honestly.
Oh yeah, I was talking to somebody about Ironcrag Feet, just being able to just, boom, turn 4, Chromatic Orrery comes down.
Yeah.
What you gonna do about it?
Ooh, yeah, that'll be crazy.
It will need DL stuff for sure.
All right, so next up we have Conspicuous Snoop, 2 chromatic cost, Goblin Rogue 2/2. Play with the top card of your library revealed. You may cast Goblin spells from the top of your library, and as long as the top card of your library is a Goblin card, Conspicuous Snoop has all activated abilities of that card. So first off, this is a combo piece in Commander, in Modern, and everything. It works perfectly with Kiki Jiki, which creates a perfect infinite loop. There are cards that can help you find Kiki Jiki and throw it on top of the deck as well. So there's some busted stuff with that just on the other side of it. But in Standard, do you guys think this will actually see play as well in the Standard format?
No, I mostly threw it in there for Historic. I was about to say I last minute added this one because it just got revealed not too long ago, and I was like, oh, yeah. That with I was actually thinking about Arcane Adaptations in Historic, and just naming everything Goblins. But yeah, I think it'll be a very fun card. I don't think it'll see Standard play probably ever, because if it ever does, it's gotten to the point where Goblins are just overrun in Standard.
So there is the Goblin Lord. I think that's still in Standard, right?
Yeah,
where we can also it also has the activated ability of being able to sack a Goblin and destroy target colorless artifact or something like that. Like it has a few effects. I think that this could bring back that card, and you could see like the amount of value that this can generate, because we have. I'm trying to remember, is Skirk Prospector in Standard right now as well, or is it Historic? I kind of forget which ones are which.
I don't know. Skirk's pretty old. I think that's Historic.
Every time we're running into the next rotation, I'm always okay. Which ones are these ones right now? Yeah, but I mean, this can use the abilities of Skirk Prospector, so that's on Arena, so it's going to be playable there first off. And so, HEG, you were talking about just the cards that are fun to play, and you're going to see these things played just because of the level of fun. I think this card definitely runs into that level of fun where you're going to be able to get a ton of value out of this, especially with Skirk Prospector, being able to sack Goblins to throw more things off the top of your library down onto the battlefield. I think this will see some play. Unfortunately, I just don't think creature decks in general are really powerful unless they are doing something above and beyond, than just. And goblins aren't aggressive enough to be quite like the mono red that we see right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really fun historic tribal deck. That's where it's going to fit best. I mean, playing with the top card of your library revealed is great if you can, from the ability. You're not casting from the top of your library, so without that, like if it's land, you're not getting any value. Then just it's a 2/2 for 2 that is like very specific. I don't think it'll see standard at all. I know we have a few goblins like the war chief, but I think to really get the value that's going to be required is going to need to be strictly goblin tribal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if you are playing a commander deck and you have Kiki Jiki, this is an immediate inclusion with that, because if you can get Kiki Jiki on top of your deck, you can tap it, turn any non-legendary creature, copy a non-legendary creature, and it gains haste, so you copy it again, copy it again, copy it again, copy it again, and you can have infinite conspicuous snoops. So that's a pretty fun little combo you can do with it as well.
Alrighty, moving us right along. We're on Mazemon Tomb. 2 mana artifact. We're going to be able to tap it, put a page counter on Mazemon Tomb, and scry 1. Or you can pay 2 mana, tap it, put a page counter on it as well, and draw a card. Whenever there are 4 or more page counters on Mazemon Tomb, exile it. If you do, you gain 4 life. So, pretty just solid all around. 1, it's artifact, so it's colorless, easy to slot into any deck. 2, it's cheap to just get scry off every turn. All you got to do is tap it. If you have the extra mana, you get to draw a card as well. I think this is going to see standard play, not probably as a 4 of, but maybe as a 2 of, maybe even a 1 of. But yeah, decks that play it are going to love it up against aggro. If they can stall to get to that 4 extra life, it's going to be lovely.
Yeah, that artifacts deck can definitely use this, where it's an extra added value. You get to scry for free, which is really nice, and then occasionally you get to pay the 2. So I think you look at this very similar to the like treasure map in the past, which saw a lot of play in some decks, but wasn't necessarily in the top tier decks. But I think that if you're playing a little bit more of like a combo-y deck, a little bit more of like a deck that just needs a little bit more love of finding the right cards off the top and drawing cards, this is a perfect 2-drop slot where it'll help the consistency of sometimes the less fine-tuned decks, but maybe not so much you're going to see it play like in the top tier standard decks.
I think that this could see play in lieu of our old Search for Skonta in Esper, right? A lot of times in the control deck, you do need to find those specific pieces in a hurry. And just having the ability to scry 1 every turn is really good. And then we can also gain 4 life, which is great against any aggro decks when we're needing to sustain ourselves to that point in the game where we can start clearing the field and maintaining control. So, and you can also draw a card, which is amazing late game too. So I think it's good.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Vito, Thorn of Duskrose for 3. It's a legendary creature, Vampire Cleric, a 1/3. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. You can pay 5 with 2 swamps. Creatures you control gain lifelink until end of turn. I think this is great. This is going to be a really cool commander, like a lot of the cards in the set. This is a vampire, so it also, I think, will go really good in our historic vampire deck.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, I think the stats on it, whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. It's going to go in a lot of jank decks, and maybe might see standard competitive play, I think. What do you guys think?
I think it's, I mean, I never expected this kind of effect to really see play in standard, because we've seen it quite a bit in the past, but on 5 mana enchantments that do nothing else, or 7 mana cards that are, kind of decent. We've never seen it for this cheap. And so the effect is crazy powerful, first and foremost. It is, I mean, the creature itself, Vito, is weak, a little bit. But, I mean, what are the downsides? Let's say that you do get an Ajani's Pridemate that gets a bunch of counters onto it, and you're swinging in for 10. You have Heliod gives it lifelink, and you swing in. Maybe Vito dies. But the upside of playing a deck that is all about life gain is that all of a sudden your Ajani's Pridemate still gained you 10 life. Like you're still in the game. You've just gained 10 life. You have a big creature. And so I think that's part of the biggest upside of Veto is that turns us into more of a competitive deck is like the decks itself that are playing around lifelink are powerful just on the side that they're playing lifelink. This gives them a combo piece that creates a really easy to play finisher. And I think that just adds the value to the deck that is a little bit concerning to me, but at the same time, I think I love when each different deck has a legitimate ability to be at the competitive scene. Like each different archetype. So the life gain decks have a chance to actually be at the competitive scene where they were always, in the lower end of tier 2, type of thing. They're powerful, but they're going to get you sometimes if they have the perfect draws, but it's not going to be in the top play. I think Veto bumps it up to maybe the lower end of the top tier, and we may even see a really fine-tuned version of this that is just going to win games consistently. So again, I'm interested to see how much damage that ability produces in standard right now. But I mean, we just barely got Revitalize reprinted as well. So 2 mana, gain 3, draw a card. I mean, that's going to all of a sudden be a lot more valuable in this. There's a lot of cards like that just make Veto very, very powerful.
Yeah, I'm ready for the Abzan Reclamation deck.
Yep.
You just gain tons of life immediately. GG.
Oh, seriously. And not to mention too, we forgot that Revitalize as well. What is it? It's Return Revitalize, the split card.
Yeah.
Is only going to be around for 3 months, but it's a 2-card combo where it helps you double your life and you make the opponent lose half their life. So you can potentially, if you're both at 20/20 when you cast that, it's 6 mana, so it's hard to imagine that, but it's 30 damage just from that scenario that you're going to deal to their face, or make them lose. And so I don't know. There's some pretty cool things with Veto. Again, it is weak. It can die to stuff, but it's also cheap to be able to play 2 of these in a deck. I think that this is one of those legendary creatures that's going to see a 4 of in each of the decks that it's actually played in. Well, so it's good.
That's the thing as well. As you said, you could be at 20/20 each. Your opponent could actually be at 30 life, and you can still hit them with that revival, and they'll just immediately KO.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not just like, they need to be around 20. No, you got a little bit of playroom. They can be up there a little bit, and you can still just finish it.
Well, and if you're playing this deck, you've probably been gaining life as well. So I mean, if you're already up to 35 or something like that, and double your life total, I mean, it's gonna be good. All right. Next up, we have Basri Ket. 3 chromatic cost, legendary planeswalker, 3 loyalty. I'm really, really stoked about this planeswalker. It's a new one. It's always fun to get new ones, and we got a new good white planeswalker and a legitimate one. So +1 ability, put a +1/+1 counter on the top onto up to 1 target creature. It gains indestructible until end of turn. So already that helps just kind of attacking in and getting some damage through. Being able to put +1/+1 counters is really nice, especially with Basri's Lieutenant, which we're going to probably talk about eventually here too. But then the -2, whenever 1 or more non-token creatures attack this turn, create that many 1/1 white soldier creature tokens that are tapped and attacking. That -2 ability is probably what does it for me with this one. We'll read the -6 first. You get an emblem at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token, then put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. All right, what do you guys think about this one? How busted is this card? Does it actually bring back mono white weenies?
I think it's a good start.
Yeah, as I was saying, I want it to, but I think based so far off the cards that I've seen, I don't know if mono white weenies will be enough to come back fully with Temur Rec being so strong. I keep going back and forth with it, and I'm like, yes, mono white weenies is coming back because they have that nice 2-drop that I think is in the honorable mentions section. So I want them to, and I don't know if it's my want or the fact that they actually are that's weighing more right now.
Yeah, so I mean, the best line that you can go with Basri Ket is turn 1 Healer's Hawk, turn 2 2 other really good 1-drops, turn 3 play out Basri Ket, -2 swing in for 6 points of damage. You've already gotten for a little bit, so you're bringing them down to about 10 life, down to 10. on turn 3, which sometimes mono white had a little bit harder times to do because you don't have the haste typically in white. You don't typically have everything else. I mean, this does work with Boros as well. It does work with other things as well. So I think it's really powerful. Going that line, especially early game, what I'm kind of excited for as well is if this does stay on the battlefield for a while and you do get to the -6, I'm actually a little bit worried that the decks that are kind of just playing like there's the Jeskai Luca deck that is still kind of around playing out Dream Trawler. They're still playing, some people are trying to work Grimm out with playing the Enrace Forerunners as well. I'm kind of worried that this deck could also be in there for the -6 ability. Like if you do get to the ultimate, it is pretty game ending and everything. It's going to be hard to get to, but that could also be a line that this can go with, where a little bit more of a control-y deck, where if you are playing some tokens, being able to put counters onto them to block bigger things is actually pretty nice. And then being able to get that -6, where you get a big board really quick with that -6 ability, the emblem. So I'm intrigued to see if that becomes a thing, especially proliferating with the +1 counter like synergies this already has. We may see that kind of resurface as well, but I don't know. It's kind of an interesting card overall to me. I think it just about puts mono white over the edge to where it's going to be top tier, but I think it's still going to be right around mid tier, unless some of the other cards help it out as well.
Yeah,
I'm seeing this in a Selesnya build personally.
Okay.
We looked at Heroic Intervention earlier. I think that does really well with its -2 ability, because not every attack is going to be against open lanes. Your opponent is going to have defenders. It does kind of suck to maybe lose your creatures when you do your -2 from it. But, with a quick 2-cost Heroic Intervention, giving Indestructible for your attack, and keeping those tokens around for next turn where you can begin to utilize them. I think that's really cool. Because if we think maybe Unbreakable Formation comes to mind as well. These tokens indestructible on your -2 attack, I think it's going to be a good play.
I'm really sad that Proliferate seems to be getting some good cards for it now that it's rotating out. When Proliferate first came out, I was like, oh, this is great. Now, I guess it's historic.
Yeah, I do think that it's kind of a bummer that there's like a cult of people that love the historic format, but there's a lot of the newer players that don't necessarily get into it as much. It is a really fun format if you ever do have a chance to be jumping into historic. I know a lot of newer players, it's hard to go grab those cards. You do that much. But that's why I think all of us do occasional historic decks on there to try to showcase new fun decks that you can do and build or whatever. And maybe some budget versions that are really fun to get into as well.
Been having a lot of fun just in the regular play queue. If you do select a historic deck, there is no regular historic play. But in the play queue, if you do select your historic deck, it'll put you against another historic deck. And I've been having some of the most fun in these matchups because it's not so competitive. You're not getting Nexus assist all the time. Yeah. So it's just good, fun, janked up Magic in the AQ for historic.
Yeah, as I say, that's actually a good tip because I didn't know that until like 3 months ago, maybe 2 months ago. And I was like watching someone else and I was like, oh, that's awkward. I didn't realize you could do that.
Next up, we have Pestilent Haze. It's a 3-cost sorcery. 2 black requirement there. You get to choose one. All creatures get -2 till end of turn. Loyalty counters from each planeswalker. I think where it really shines is the fact that it's a utility card. It's great against aggro decks with the creatures, and it's great against the planeswalker decks, right? The Super Friends. So it could see main board play just because it can hit both sides of the fence. All creatures -2/-2 is neat because we are seeing more indestructible, right? So if we do hit an indestructible creature with a minus ability to take its toughness below 0, we can still get the kill on it there, so that's neat. Then it's removing 2 loyalty from each planeswalker if it is a Super Friends deck, if they've got 3 planeswalkers on the field. That's going to be pretty good. It's not quite as good as an Elder Spell, right? Obviously, I'd love to destroy them, but even just to slow them down a little bit.
Yeah, I actually really like this card in Best of 1. I like a lot of these cards that are like either the 2 cards in 1 or the choose one or the other abilities. It makes it a lot more playable in Best of 1. And I think majority of us here play Best of 1 or have in the past, you know.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, the other card that's like this, that is typically played is like Cry of the Canarium. You get the upside of being able to exile the things that you kill with the -2. But like you said, the utility side of this means that control decks aren't worried about going up against another control deck and having complete dead cards. And so Cry of the Canarium oftentimes was just put into the sideboard rather than main board, where I feel like it ought to be with how heavy, aggressive a lot of the aggro decks are. Where this is going to start seeing a lot more main board play, at least 2 copies, I would say, in just about any black deck that's running control style stuff. It's perfect for that deck where you can kill Teferi after the turn it comes out. If it bounces something, the negative or 2 loyalty counters will get that. It makes a Narset get down to where it can't at least use the activated ability again. There's a lot of things with this that it definitely helps out. It also kills the new Narset after it comes out as well, and uses this one ability. So there's a lot of good value, I think, with Pestilent Haze for sure, that it'll definitely see play in those control decks. The number, I think it's probably never more than 2 copies, but it'll probably see 2 copies just about any black control deck. So next up, Stormwing Essence or Eternity. There's a couple different translations of this one right now, but 5 mana cost, 3/3 flyer with prowess, and when it enters the battlefield, you scry 2. So that's a lot of text on this already for a 3/3 flyer. The best part is the first line of text that says this spell costs 2 and a blue less to cast if you've cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn. So instead of being 5 mana, this is actually 2 mana, as long as you cast an opt or whatever this turn. And so this is definitely busted. I think that this is one of those cards that may actually put the prowess deck online, and not even just the prowess deck. If you're casting instants and sorceries, if you have any number of cantrips in your deck, you're going to want to be playing this. And so I could see this actually coming back with the Jeskai, or sorry, the Is It Phoenix type of deck. Any of those decks that are going to be casting lots of instant sorceries, where I think very consistently you're going to be getting this down on turn 3 as a 2/2 3/2 flyer that scries 2 and enters the battlefield, and then we'll get buffed. The next turn be swinging in for 7, very likely. That's a very, very powerful card, and I'm really hyped for this one. I think it's really, really cool.
At first glance, I kind of was like, wow, it's a little bit expensive. But when you do start thinking about consistently casting it for 2, and then it enters the battlefield, you scry 2, that's good value. A 3/3 to scry 2 for 2, that's really, really good. And then it gets better than that, the fact that it does have prowess, and then you can buff it on your following turn. It's great and limited, and it probably, like you say, will see play in some of the standard Spellslinger decks.
I think the one side of it that's going to be interesting is if you're playing that deck and you have a hand that doesn't have Stormwing Eternity, you have 3 mana, and you have an opt in hand. I'm always going to be tempted, like, I could find it with this opt. I think that that kind of line is always going to be there. You're always going to be wanting to go for it as well. And I think that it will happen every once in a while. So I think that the only downside is you may want to be tempted to play your opt main phase instead of instant speed, but there's worse things that could happen.
Yeah, I think this alongside something like Brazen Borrower, Mono Blue Tempo Flyers has a very strong chance of coming back and just dominating, which I'm not excited for, but we'll see. It's also Mystical Dispute. We got a lot of really, really good blue cards actually that are very cheap.
Yeah, that's very true.
Next up, Peer into the Abyss, a 7-drop with 3 swamp requirement or black mana, a sorcery. Target player draws cards equal to half of the number of cards in their library and loses half of their life round up each time. I don't even know where to start. This is going straight into Janktown. There's a few different ways to go about this, right? Niv Mizzet, for example. Again, the black mana requirement is very hard, but easily fixable in a Jank deck.
Yeah, Jank all the way is pretty much all it's going to be, but it's for those Jank players that don't necessarily enjoy going wide so much as playing control up until I get to play this one card kind of Jank, because there's Jank players of all kinds, of people that like going wide, going big, and in this case, going control until you play one card.
I do think the Niv Mizzet line is the one I'm probably going to go for the most with this card, where even though it's going to be really hard to cast. You have to have 3 red, 3 blue, black by the next turn. So this is turn 6 and visit, turn 7 this. But we also have Chromatic Orrery. So just saying, there's some other like fun, janky stuff that can help you work. So I don't know. This is one of those cards that I think is definitely more jank. It's super fun for Commander. This is another one of those that's like, I feel like it's more printed for Commander. In fact, just last night I was sitting next to someone that had an visit and did Enter to the Eternities, which drew his entire deck. And so there's some fun cards out there that do this kind of stuff. Experience the Abyss, I love that we have the chance to do this kind of stuff in Standard. So I think that and this definitely isn't going to be top tier in any way, but I do think there's going to be a deck that could probably do this consistently. Fire's Invention, I'm grateful it's gone, but this is the one deck that I feel like I would have thrown it into for the Jinx side of it, so a little bummer there.
Gives me shivers.
Alrighty, next we got Bassary's Lieutenant. Jeff, you were talking about this one earlier. It's 4 mana, 3/4, human knight, so we're getting more knight, we're getting more humans. Not that they really needed any extra. It's got vigilance, it's got protection from multicolors, so already fantastic. And then the bottom ability is really what we're all excited about, right? When Bassary's Lieutenant enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control.
Yeah,
sorry.
Extra text,
whatever, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, whenever Bassary's Lieutenant, so whenever this creature or another creature you control dies, if it had a +1/+1 counter, you're going to get to create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance, which is... It's crazy. It's great against the board wipe abilities. You no longer just lose everything, right? Even if you do lose everything, you're getting everything right back. So, I don't know.
There's so much to be hyped about with this card. First off, the +1/+1 counter can go on to Bassary's Lieutenant. It doesn't have any way saying that it can't go with that. So we were talking about before, the 3/4 stat line has some issues against some of the other 4/4 type of things, or whatever. This can be a 4/5, and all of a sudden it completely gets rid of that side of it. And if ever you do block, a questing beast with this, you're at least going to get a 2/2 white knight out of that trade-off. So already it's really, really powerful. And then it has vigilance, and then it has protection from multicolor. And if you're playing a deck that has +1/+1 counters, even just slightly here and there, like even if there's 2 other creatures that have it and there's a board wipe, if you're getting board wiped and have 3 to 4 2/2 white knights after the fact, that is a fantastic. I would be fine with that board wipe all day long because they just spent 4 mana and I get to swing in for 8. So I think Bassary's Lieutenant is a really, really hype card. I think that it's probably the thing that moves. Maybe not mono white weenies necessarily, but there's going to be a value town type of deck that builds this. Maybe some people were talking about like Broodmoth using this or something like that. There's a bunch of different cards, and in fact. This does go infinite with Grumgully and Woe Strider. So Grumgully will put a counter onto the knight, the 2/2 white knight when it enters the battlefield. And then when you sack that knight with Woe Strider or something like that, it will come back into play, and you can do it over and over and over again. And as long as you can have something like, any kind of aristocrat type thing, you're going to have infinite combo with that. And so that's a 4-piece infinite combo. Definitely not easy to do, but I mean, I'm going to try it for sure.
So. Easy never stopped us before.
Protection from multicolored, it's just been such a powerful thing, like we've seen in Stone Cold Serpent. It shuts down a lot of decks. So forcing you to have single color removal is really specific, especially in Best of 1. Maybe in traditional games we don't see this as much, even though I think we will, because you get sideboard for it a lot easier rather than just like having to deal with it in the moment. But again, it screams Selesnya to me for some reason. I want to be playing Selesnya tokens using my Unbreakable formation, because it's it's any other creature, not non-token, right? So even if your tokens are dying, if they had the +1/+1s on them, we're going to get to create the white knights as well, and then hopefully put +1/+1s on those knights that were just created and kind of have a never-ending loop.
Yeah, so in the past, we had like a pretty good Selesnya mid-range type of deck, and this is the card that I think will bring back the potential for that one. Maybe even like a Naya deck, because like Gruul Spellbreaker, all the Riot cards that give the +1/+1 counter add so much versatility with this card in that deck, where you can just go aggressive and be beating down. You can put the counters on and get extra value out of the board wipes. You can do so much with that kind of deck that I think that the value side of it wasn't there before because you didn't have a good card like just a number of different good cards like this. And so I think this adds a lot to a lot of things, like a bunch of different decks. And the fact that it can't be bounced by Teferi is just wonderful. You know, it still dies to Heartless Act. Actually, I guess if you put the counter on top of it, it doesn't necessarily die to Heartless Act. You know, so it kind of even dodges that. Tyrant Scorn. I'm trying to think of the different like removal spells that people actually play. Probably the biggest one is that Eat to Extinction is still going to be around. Board wipes are still going to be around, and that's probably the big things that are going to be like taking care of this.
ACD.
And I do like how they've been It seems like we've been adding insurance against board wipes. Like we've seen the Ozlith, for example, or Annex. Now we're seeing this in white color, right? So it's really nice because I feel like a lot of the mid-range and the aggro decks that weren't quick enough were getting thrashed by board wipes. It was pretty oppressive to the point where mid-range exists. And then we've seen Agent just trash mid-range even more. So it's really nice that we're getting different tools to kind of help us cure a board state after a field wipe.
Yeah. This is definitely a good card. I'm excited to see where exactly it goes because I think, like we were talking about, there's so many different decks that it can go into. I know one of them is going to be in the top tier. I just don't know which one yet. You know, like that's what I'm kind of excited to see is where meta goes with this card. And I feel like it's going to be C played just the same way Questing Beast has been everywhere. This is, I think, on the level of Questing Beast. I'm not. What do you guys put it up against Questing Beast? Is this better or about the same?
I think it's a perfect answer. It doesn't have haste, it blocks, and you still receive value from it. So the fact that it makes the 2/2 on itself, if that's your choice, to put the counter on it and then block the beast, I think it's a really good answer for white. I mean, they do have things like Chalk Down, right? Grab stuff like the Questing Beast, but less, more tools are always fun.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Necromentia for 3. It's a sorcery. You're going to need 2 swamps to cast this. A card name other than a basic land card name. Search target's graveyard, hand, library for any number of cards with that name and exile them. That player shuffles their library, then creates a 2/2 black zombie creature token for each card exiled from their hand this way. I think this is great. Probably, obviously, a sideboard card unless you're really, really tuned into the meta and you know what every deck has that really shuts your deck down. You have to be really aware not only of your deck, but all of the other decks within the meta if you're playing at best of 1. Again, in best of 3, this just reminds me of something like an Unmoored Ego and the fact that you take anything other than a basic land. So we could take a Field of the Dead, for example, or something, even maybe a Castle Vantress. But I'm sure we'll find higher priority things to take than those, but it's just nice that we have the option.
Yeah, I think you got it there. Alright, last we have Yugen, the Spirit Dragon, 8 mana, 7 loyalty. You can plus it up too, and Eugen's going to deal 3 damage to any target. Obviously, that's a nice plus ability, being able to remove something as well as make your Planeswalker a little bit beefy. The minus X ability, we're all terrified for. I think that goes without saying. Exile each permanent with converted mana cost X or less. That's 1 or more colors, so you can't actually hit artifacts, so maybe an artifact deck does pop up somewhere through the cracks. And then the fun aspect of it, we'll say, is you gain 7 life, you draw 7 cards, and you put up to 7 permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield, so effectively you win the game if your hand's looking right.
Yeah, I mean, the scary part about this is that ramp is, like, this is a card I never would have thought that I'd be scared about this in standard because it's 8 mana. You know, like modern has the Tron ability to be able to play this out pretty quickly. There's a lot of different decks that can do it, but honestly, right now, modern or standard has so much ramp. This is the perfect top end where, by itself, it can completely end the game. You know, like if it comes out, it has a good negative ability. Like there are going to be people that can survive maybe to an Ugin, you know, and still win the game depending on where you're at in the game. But for the most part, this just will come down and end games immediately. The exile ability is completely oppressive. You know, if you don't have to use the negative ability and there's only 1 creature to deal damage to and kill, this gets up to its ultimate in 2 turns, you know. And so or I guess on the third turn it's out. And so it's just a really bonkers card. And with the amount of ramp that we have in standard, I'm first off really excited to try to get to this as quick as possible. Like this is probably turn 5 is what will be hit consistently with this. I would imagine turn 5 isn't terribly difficult to have this scene played. Maybe turn 6, but a turn 5, turn 6 Ugin is really, really powerful.
Yeah, so maybe one downside to casting it with ramp is that the -X will probably eliminate all of your ramp. So that's maybe a bit of a bummer there. But I think once you do have them on the field, maybe you might not need that ramp so much anymore. And then another note, it is quite expensive. But you can cast it for 5 with ECD, bringing it back from the graveyard, right? So I think that's one line that I'm really excited to use.
Absolutely, yeah. It's going to be a good card. Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff to go into, and I'm really excited for all the cards that we have in standard. All these ones that are coming up. We also have some honorable mentions as well that we're going to be jumping into. We're trying to go through these a little bit quicker, but there's some really fun stuff that's coming. First off, just the prowess mechanic. We have Jeskai Elder here, 2 convert mana cost, 1/2 human monk. The prowess ability is has been seen in the past quite a bit, and I absolutely love it. I think non-creature spells was something that you typically just saw a lot of instant sorceries. There weren't that many planeswalkers, but we're playing in a format right now where we still have 42 planeswalkers or something like that right now. So we get to see a lot of play with the non-creature side of this as well. And then whenever this deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card, and if you do, discard a card. This is really great in like the tempo style of deck where you're going to want to be playing, swing in with this. People are going to be scared to block because with the prowess ability, if you're holding up 2-3 mana, this can become a 3/4, a 4/5, without too much effort or without too much surprise there. And so I could see this getting in to draw you quite a few cards throughout the game just by kind of putting on the pressure and kind of controlling the board a little bit here and there. I think the biggest downside of like the mono blue tempo deck or anything that we don't have as often is like in the past we had dive down, spell pierce, all those different cards that kind of gave a little bit more protection that we don't have as cheap right now. Mystical Dispute helps. It is in there and it's good against some stuff, but it doesn't necessarily counter, the black removal spells that are out there for 1 mana at the same time. So I'm interested to see if we get any new cards in the common slot or uncommon slot as the spoilers keep coming out that will actually put that deck over the edge because I could see that happening with Prowess being really close. With Riddle Form as well coming out. That's not one I think we have on the honorable mentions, but there was a card that was used in the previous. It's another 2 mana 3/3 flyer, that we have. It has to play a non-creature spell to be able to be activated, but that's something that we've seen in the past as well. Be pretty good in the Prowess deck.
Yeah, I think you got it.
I think it's great. One thing to add, you probably won't be getting a lot of ground damage in, but now this probably won't be competitive either. But we do have the ability to give it flying, right? Whether it's through an aura or through mutate, just to make sure that that attack ability of starting to cycle through your deck is a little bit more consistent. Because cycling through your deck is one of the most powerful things you can do. Getting rid of the lands you don't need, finding the cards that you do, can be really, really powerful.
Yeah, that's important to note too. Like from what we've seen of the cards that do really well with Prowess in the past have been 1 mana spells with the same stat line of 1/2. They haven't been able to draw you cards, but I think the biggest difference is that Prowess is really powerful when you're able to cast spells cheap. And 2 mana is actually surprisingly expensive in the Prowess style of deck. So I'm really interested to see if we get some good 1 mana Prowess things like Soul Scar Mage that we had in the past, or different cards like that have been really powerful in red. So I don't think we've seen really any Prowess in red yet. So I'm intrigued to see what we do see if we see any there.
Cool. Next up, we have Azusa Lost But Seeking. This is a 3-cost 1/2 legendary creature, human monk. You may play 2 additional lands on each of your turns. So this screams jank to me. This is great with things like Frenzy, right? Experimental Frenzy, or Bolas Citadel, where we're playing from our library and we don't want to run into multiple lands because that'll stop our turn. So this, much like Dryad of the Elysian Grove, allows us to play multiple lands. Unlike him, this is a legendary, so we're not going to be running probably 4 copies of this in a standard deck. I think it does make a great brawl commander, right? Just being able to consistently ramp out in your matches is really, really cool. 1/2 is pretty weak. I think it could do really well in a couple jank decks as a 1 or 2 of. What do you guys think?
Yeah, completely agree. It'll be fun jank. Probably won't see actual competitive play unless something comes out that just makes it, over the top bonkers. But fun jank nonetheless, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I think the biggest downside is that there is so much ramp that pulls lands out of your hands already with a Royal Grazer, with Growth Spiral, with Uro, that it's hard to think that you're going to be able to play this on turn 3, or turn 2 if you're ramping a little bit, and still have 2 additional lands besides your third one that you've already played, like to cast this. So that's probably the biggest downside of this one, is that it's great ramp spell, it's great stuff, but just like HEG was talking about, this is more of the combo piece with playing things off the top of your library and getting them out a few extra lands so you can keep the combo going. That's where this is going to see the most competitive play.
Alrighty, next up we got Arcfiend's Vessel. It's a 1-mana 1/1 that has lifelink. Nothing special there, but it reads, whenever Arcfiend's Vessel enters the battlefield, if it entered from your graveyard or you cast it from your graveyard, exile it. If you do, create a 5/5 black demon creature token with flying. Yeah, so thank God Loris just got its patch, right?
Even still, though, Loris in the main board with this card, I'm still completely terrified of.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing I think is Loris has kind of been waiting on the fringe to be able to be played like in the main board decks to be and stuff like this. I think cards like this kind of put it over the edge, and we already had a lot of really good 1-drops or 2-drops that are already out there. This is bonkers, though. This is, let's say that we do have.
At least it doesn't have haste.
Yeah, it doesn't have haste, but we also have Call the Death Dweller as well out there, which for 3 mana you bring 2 of these back, and all of a sudden you have 10/10 power on the battlefield on turn 3. I think that line is very, very possible, or not completely unlikely. So scary stuff you can do.
The Mire Trident self-mill. I'm even thinking Nethroi, Apex of Death, his mutate ability, bring up to power or less of creatures back into the battlefield. You can bring all 4 of these without a problem, and then some, right? I think this will probably see some tier 2 competitive play. Like maybe not in the tournament scene, but people are going to be playing with this a lot for sure. It's too tempting not to.
I could see like a mono black aggro that runs Luris, or maybe like a white black aggro. That could be a card that's right on the fringe, like you said. Like I'm not quite sure if it's going to be tier 1 competitive, but I mean with Knight of the Even Legion, with all the different cards that are already really, really powerful in that archetype as well, for like the mono black aggro, it's kind of just needed as something like this to be able to be a really good finisher that has flying, to swing over the top and kind of close it out. And so I don't know. I think this is really close to being up towards that top tier, but I'm really interested to see where it goes. All right, so Angelic Insection, 2 convert mana cost instant, exile target creature or planeswalker. Its controller creates a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. So I'm actually more excited about this to target my own stuff. I don't know about you guys, but it's cool that you can have something that can just kill a planeswalker for 2 mana. Like we don't typically have something that exiles planeswalkers, gets rid of the ability for them to bring it back with Elspeth Comfort's Death and everything. But what I'm really excited for is to play, tokens deck or something like that, a 1-drop that's really cheap, and all of a sudden instant speed the next turn. Hey, I have a 4/4 white angel creature token. Swinging in with that on turn 3 is very, very powerful and very good. So this is one of those, again, kind of like, it's an honorable mention because I don't think it's going to be completely consistent. Like 4/4 white angels are great, but they also die to everything. So it's one of those like, I think this is a good card. I think that there's going to be some fun play with this, but I'm interested to see exactly where it goes with it. What do you guys think? Do you actually think this will play?
Yeah, I think this is totally viable in the mono white aggro deck. Just instant speed after you've attacked on the end of attack, you're tapped. You have this in your hand. Your opponent takes his turn on his end step, and one of your tapped attackers into a 4/4 angel that he was thinking was going to be a 1/1 or a 2/2 or something. Then boom, you have evasion. You're in the air just for that final bit of damage.
I think the hardest part with this card is being able to hold up the 2 white mana in the kind of decks that are going to be wanting to run this. Like that's the side of it that I think would be the hardest, is like you're going to want to be playing out a bunch of creatures on turn 2 to kind of be keeping the consistency going. But again, though, like if you can hold up the 2 mana and you're running up against like a Deafening Clarion or something like that, you can turn a creature that's about to die into something that will survive the Deafening Clarion and still swing in. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see if this does see a lot of play or not. It's going to be hard to be holding up that 2 mana in the decks that are going to be running to run this in the aggro side of things. I'm not sure if this quite sees play like in more of a control matchup or control deck or anything like that. But I mean, even control decks occasionally can just throw down a 4/4 White Angel, have a great blocker, and close out games fairly quickly that way. I've seen decks that run that kind of strategy and just have it available to them. You can exile the 0/4 artifact, wall or whatever, and also turn it into a 4/4 Angel and block as they're attacking in, that kind of stuff. Like, there's some pretty interesting lines that you can go with this card, but I'm intrigued to see if it sees play, in which decks. So I like the card. It's a cool effect that I don't think I've really seen before at that cost, and add instant speed. So that's really, really cool.
Even offensively, I think it's pretty good. Like if you're playing a control deck who has field wipes, you're matched up against another control deck, pop this down on like his Liliana or something. That's so much nicer to deal with that way. And then you can just get 4 damage maybe one turn, and then you wipe it or deal with it the next turn. Mm-hmm. Even making it into a token and then to fairy bouncing it off the field, right? So I think it's really good just because you can play both sides of the fence of it with it again, where you can stoke yourself offensively, or you can use it defensively as well.
Oh yeah, I think it's a good card. I think control is going to be really powerful. And speaking of control, Dr. Spilkin, you got the next one, right?
Yeah. We're on to Rewind. 4 mana, it's an instant speed counter target spell. You get to untap up to 4 lands. It's more Team Rex stuff. I'm not really surprised. I'm excited for rotation.
I think it's really, really good unless it gets countered.
Yeah.
If you're against a mono green deck, awesome.
Yeah, this is one of those, like, right now in the format, the reason why Quench is even played is because you need to be countering stuff on turn 2. You want to be able to counter the Teferi, you want to be able to counter, stuff like that. And so 2 mana counter spells are typically played more often. But I think that this is a great card to have in the arsenal of your control deck, where you have maybe 1 or 2 of. I don't typically play control, so I go back and forth with that. But being able to untap the 4 lands and counter again, and just being able to hold up, you can counter something and still draw 2 cards with Chemist's Insight, or whatever else. There's another draw of 3 cards with it in this set as well for 4 mana. So there's a lot of good stuff you can do with it. I think the real fun side of this would be like if you're playing the land that untaps and has 3 mana or whatever, like that kind of stuff. Where if you're untapping 4 lands and getting more than 4 mana out of it, that's where it gets really bonkers. So a little bit harder to build around that, like you're saying. Wilderness Reclamation, I think this kind of fits in that as well, where you can counter stuff and you're still going to have extra mana, be doing even more things with it. So I'm really intrigued to see if this sees a lot of play or not, but I mean, it's definitely a powerful effect for sure.
I think it's going to be great in limited if your opponent is using instant speed stuff on you. And then you can counter his instant speed removal and then continue to play another creature with the mana that you still have, right, on your second main phase or just after the counter, right? Next up, we have Seasoned Hallowblade. This is a 3/1 human warrior. We can discard a card, tap Seasoned Hallowblade. It gains indestructible until end of turn. So this is great. I always like 3/1s just for the offensive ability for 2. And the fact that we can protect it, giving it indestructible by discarding a card, I think it's pretty powerful. It reminds me of Adonto Vanguard, in which case we had to pay 4 life. I think that you have to choose your poison. For some decks, paying 4 life was no problem, right? Say like in an Esper deck. But you don't have it anymore, but a Goblin Chain Whirler is absolutely terrorizing to that, because now you're taking 5 damage from a Chain Whirler. So I think in that scenario, discarding a card is a lot more friendly. You normally always have life to pay. You might not always have a card to discard, so it's going to be a trade-off.
Yeah, I think that we saw it with Dream Trawler being really, really powerful, being able to discard, but that's in a control deck that is typically drawing lots of cards and holding up lots of cards, throughout the game. And not only that, Dream Trawler draws more cards in itself when it ever attacks. At the same time, though, if this can survive a board wipe, if this can, get in for a little bit more damage, this is another one of those pieces that kind of helps out that mono white weenie deck that might just be powerful enough that you can be swinging in, I think the downside of this is that if you ever are up against like an aggro matchup, there's going to be a lot of things with one power that will make you force the discard or something like that. And I think people will gladly trade off like a Scorch Bitter to kill, to make you discard a card, even if you keep this alive. And so that's where I feel like it's an in-between card where it's like, I think it's really powerful against the control matchups where being able to, give indestructible. I'm definitely willing to discard a card in order to keep this alive through a board wipe. But if you're up against a control matchup, it being a blade, that 3/1 stat line is really weak where you're going to have to do it very consistently, very often. And that's where I feel like the Adento Vanguard did okay because you could pay for a life and still outvalue them to an extent in those types of decks. But the discarding side against a mono red deck is going to be probably even more oppressive. So I'm in between with this card. I think it'll see play. I'm not sure if it's going to be top tier or not, though. One card that's definitely going to see play, though, just because it's so cute, is Selfless Savior. 1 mana, dog, 1/1. And it also has some really good stat lines here, really good text. Sacrifice Selfless Savior, another target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. So we kind of saw this with Dauntless Vanguard with the Knights in the past, except that it had to come into the battlefield and target something and say, I can give that card indestructible. This just being able to give anything indestructible, and again, with Luris in the format right now where it can bring it back and do it over and over again, we see this already with All-Seed of Light's Bounty, being able to add even more value into that deck. This is where I'm kind of a little bit terrified of like the maybe like Orzhov aggro, which I don't think I'd ever expected myself to say those words, but like Orzhov aggro might actually be a thing, with the Archfiend, whatever it's called, and all that kind of stuff. And there's some really good cards out there. Selfless Savior, I think, is one of those cards that is like, okay, I'm not. You don't look at it and think it's really that great, but it's an enabler that turns a lot of other decks that just need a one of to give whatever card veto indestructible to be able to do a little bit more stuff. This is one of those cards that enables a lot of those decks and is really easy to include at the 1-drop slot.
Yeah, I think you said it really great. For me, this goes right into the mono white deck. More protection from field wipes, right? So if he wipes the field, maybe you're lucky enough to have a Broodmoth in play. You give your Broodmoth indestructible, it survives the field wipe. Everything else comes back with flying. You continue to aggress and smash your opponent. So more pieces of the puzzle to help us survive the oppressive board states that we've seen just rampant within the meta.
I think this is also be a reason why like the Pestilent Haze might be seen a little bit more play, the -2 ability board wipe effects. We may even see a change from basic board wipe, like Shattered Skies, which is one of the best board wipes we've seen in a long time, to all of a sudden maybe not even seeing play in standard because there's so many effects that kind of give indestructible and everything like that or outvalue it. So I'm actually intrigued to see how that changes the format.
Alrighty, next up we have Mangara the Diplomat, 4 mana, and this is one of the first cards spoiled. It's a 2/4 lifelink. Whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you and or planeswalkers you control, then you get to draw a card. And whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, you get to draw a card as well. So y'all talked about this being real big for Commander. We had talked about it not being super great in the 4-drop slot, as you don't get a whole lot. You get a 2/4, you get a Defender, but it entering the battlefield doesn't cause you greatness immediately, which is oftentimes what you want in those weenie decks. You want something that's going to hit, but it is very nice in those like mirror matchups, I'd say, with controls where you just sort of get this down and then you get to get the card draw, get the card draw, get the card draw, and have a 2/4 lifelinker as well.
Yeah, this is an interesting card for standard, and this is what we were saying before, where there's a lot of cards that are kind of created, you feel like, for Commander, where this doesn't quite hit the standard slot as well, but maybe a sideboard slot. Like, it's definitely not a bad turn for a play where, against an aggro deck, bringing down a 2/4 lifelinker that may draw you a card isn't a terrible turn form play. Is it better than just holding up your mana? I don't know. There's some instances where I feel like this can be a little bit difficult to play, but I feel like it's more going to be in a control deck that uses this as kind of like a body to help you survive against the aggro decks. And still draw you, that can give you the extra value. maybe on the top end of like maybe like a one of in a mono white, maybe mid range style deck as well. I don't know. What do you think, HGG?
Personally, like you said, it's a great commander card. It doesn't scream tier 1 to me overall. What it does scream is very high value for a beginner. This is something that a beginner can play without knowing the meta too in depth. They're going to get value from it almost no matter what, as long as it's not immediately removed. So I think it's a really friendly card to play because you're benefiting whenever they cast a second spell. You're benefiting whether they attack you. So if they're aggro, you benefit. If they're a spell slinger or a control deck, you benefit. Like you said, I don't think it's good enough to see competitive play. You do also get the lifelink, which means more survivability, which is great. And it is a human, so it can go tribal. So for me personally, this is probably just going to go human tribal brawl deck.
All right, next one is Primal Might. I'm going to jump out of line on this one because I actually am really hyped on this card. It's definitely honorable mention because there's a lot of downside to it, but Primal Might, X and a green, sorcery. Target creature you control gets +X/+X until end of turn. Then it fights up to one target creature you don't control. So I'm a huge fan of the Gruul aggro type of style of gameplay. I like to play more of like the mid-range, tempo to mid-range type of aggro-y decks. And Primal Might actually really powerful with things like Gruul Spellbreaker. While it's still in the format, the biggest downside of this is that if you do dump a lot of mana into this, and then the creature you're targeting just gets destroyed, like you get no value whatsoever out of this. It's just a big mana dump that you got nothing out of. But if you have something like Gruul Spellbreaker, which has hexproof and can fight a creature pretty effectively, also you're getting rid of a blocker, you're pumping this up by 3 or 4, and then swinging in for 7 or 8. Like that's a really powerful attack, and I think really awesome. And so I think this is a card that will see play in standard as it is, while we have things like Gruul Spellbreaker. Even Paradise Druid, this isn't too bad with being able to make it bigger. And so Primal Might, I think it's kind of crazy where I wouldn't think this card really saw play in most standards, but we have the pieces right now to make this a decent card. And I do like it overall in general. I mean, just if you pay this for 0, you do get the basic fight up to one target creature you don't control, and that's seen play with other fight cards as well. That's kind of the running cost for a fight effect. And being able to also have the versatility just to pump in and maybe win with this as well. Again, there's a big downside to that if it doesn't go your way, but I love that that's the versatility is there. Kind of like we were talking about the utility cards in a best of one type of format. Add a lot to just, I think, the fun of playing a deck like that.
For me, this might be a 1 of or a 2 of in my Gruul deck, but for sure I'm going to keep the other spare copies in my sideboard just in case it is a creature deck. Obviously, I don't maybe want to get stuck with too many copies of this. If there's nothing to fight, then we're losing some value. We're just getting the +X/+X, which we do see in other things, and it might not necessarily be required, especially if your creature doesn't have trample. Again, I think this is really good in Gruul. This is going to be really good in mono green as well, just for the fight effect. But I think where it really shines is in your sideboard, determining that your opponent is playing a creature-based deck, then just stacking as much Primal Might and Domri Ambush as right?
Let's go into See the Truth. You got it, HGG.
Yeah, 1 sec here. So See the Truth is a 2-drop sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. If this spell was cast from anywhere other than your hand, each of those cards into your hand instead. So this is kind of a weird card. I'm sure it will see in some Jeskai decks somehow. Just it's going to be really unique, and I don't think that we're going to really see it a lot. 2, putting 1 card in your hand by looking at the top 3. The base value on that's not bad, right? So you're getting to go through your deck to get to the required piece that you want.
Which we already
shines
have, which is an instant speed version of
we
this.
have
So that's
that.
the side of it, it's down. Yeah.
Instance is nicer, but I think where it really shines is if we're casting it from anywhere other than our hand. We're putting all 3 cards into our hand as well. So just to be able to have the option for that is really nice, especially while we do still have Teferi, we can cast this instant as well. So it's not too much of a negative as long as we're running it in a control deck, which will all contain Teferi for the next while. I think it's gonna be hard for people to figure out maybe how to cast this from their library or from their graveyard rather than from their hand. One thing that I guess comes to mind, actually, no, that's, I believe Chandra's minus ability is only on red spells, isn't it? 3-cost Chandra minus X.
Yeah, it's a red instant or sorcery spell.
Yeah, so
5-cost Chandra can definitely play this with the +1 ability, not the -9, but the +1 ability can give you a new hand and have it play from exile.
Okay, so that's perfect.
Escape into the Wilds is probably the first thing I think of. Like, what are the ways that you can actually use this? Like in Modern, there's Snapcaster Mage. You know, in Pioneer, there's a lot of different cards that can kind of do this. But in Standard right now, Escape to the Wilds is probably one of the ones that can actually do it. Maybe like Golos's ability. You know, like there's a lot of stuff like that where it's like you can get extra value from it. I mean, there are some cards that let you play things off the top of your library as well. So like if you're playing.
Bolas Citadel.
You know, a couple of things like that. You can still get some value there. Again, though, I think that you don't play this card unless you have a lot of ways to be playing this outside of your hand. Otherwise, you just play Anticipate, or you just play, you know, what's the other card? The Flash Omen of the Seas is probably a lot better than this.
Just something that you can do consistently rather than a card that relies on another component to work.
Mm-hmm.
So this was our preview of the spoilers for M20 so far. A couple things that our spoiler season started on June 5th. I think it's June 10th today. So we're about halfway through it. And then it goes all the way until June 19th. That's the day it will end. We'll have our complete collection at that point. It's released in Arena June 25th and in paper worldwide, I believe, on July 4th. This is the 20th Magic core set, which is incredible. That is a lot. It's got 274 cards, 53 rares, and 16 mythics, which means you'll need roughly 212 packs to complete your set. Which, a fun little fact, if you buy the 50 pack pre-release with 50 packs in it for $50 or whatever it is, and you play 4 matches every single day, you will farm 212 rares by the time the next set comes out, which means you don't have to do any crazy drafting, you don't have to do any crazy buying of hundreds and hundreds of packs. You just have to buy your $50 worth, play the game you love every single day for 4 matches, and that's it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Also, if you're looking to catch the podcast anywhere else, this is going to be live on Spotify, SoundCloud, and what was the other one I'd said? Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play. There we go.
Everywhere you normally look for podcasts. That's where it's going to be.
Yeah, and we're excited to see you guys on next week. We're going to have a few more spoilers come out then. I think that we'll probably have a few more big spoilers, but we'll probably have a lot of just kind of like the basic chaff cards that kind of come out around that time as well. And so we'll probably try to get to you guys just some of the highlight cards, a couple of things, and then maybe just the way that we feel about the whole set in general for each of the different colors and things like that. And so anyway, really excited, glad you guys are here hopping on, and we'll be doing this each week. And yeah, let us know down in the comments below of things you guys would like us to be talking about, what things you want to be addressing. It's just really fun to get 3 guys that do the same thing together in a room, and especially, you know, people that don't typically play the older formats quite as much, have the focus a bit more around MTG Arena, you know, where we're playing the digital format, we're playing the format where a lot of the newer players are at. And I think that's really where we're trying to make this shine a little bit more, is that, you know, a lot of us, I think all 3 of us are new-ish players, or players that don't get to go play paper quite as much, you know, and so we're a lot more on the digital scene than I think a lot of other players, a lot of other YouTubers have been in the past. And anyway, so I hope you guys enjoy this stuff. Yeah, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Peace.
Like next Friday, we're back with the remainder of the spoilers from M20, and then I believe the week after that, we'll probably be doing some theory crafting, right? Talking about the new meta, what we think is really cool, any lines that we've seen. So stay tuned. Make sure to favorite this podcast on whichever platform you are listening on, and we'll be here every single Friday for the foreseeable future. Thank you guys all for your time and attention. I cannot tell you how much we as a group really appreciate you. for spending it here with us. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Peace.